The communications console blinked steadily in the dimly lit room. Jiwoo Park sat at her station, monitoring the regular transmissions from dozens of human colonies scattered across the galaxy. She had been doing this job for 6 years now, and it had become routine. Every colony sent their status reports on schedule. Every single one. Until today. Jiwoo frowned at her screen. New Haven was late. 48 hours late. She checked the logs again, thinking perhaps she had missed something. But no, the colony had simply stopped transmitting. No messages. No emergency signals. Nothing at all. "Commander Choi," she called out, trying to keep her voice calm. "We have a situation." Taeyang Choi walked over to her station. He was a veteran officer who had seen many false alarms over the years. Most communication failures were just technical problems. A damaged relay. A solar storm. Simple things with simple solutions. "What is it?" he asked. New Haven missed their check-in. 2 days ago. Taeyang leaned closer to the screen. "Have you tried alternate channels?" "All of them. 5 separate communication arrays. All silent." Something cold settled in Taeyang's chest. New Haven was not just any colony. It was home to 47,000 people. Farmers, teachers, engineers, families. Children who had never known Earth, who called that distant world their home. "Send the scout ship," he ordered. "The Pathfinder. Full speed. I want answers within the week." 3 days passed slowly. Jiwoo barely slept, watching her console for any sign of transmission from New Haven. Nothing came. The silence grew heavier with each passing hour. Then the Pathfinder arrived at the New Haven system. Captain Minisio Kong stood on the bridge of her ship, expecting to find a simple explanation. Maybe the colony had suffered a power failure. Maybe they were dealing with some local emergency. These things happened on frontier worlds. But her sensors told a different story. "Captain," her science officer said quietly, his voice shaking. "I am not detecting any life signs. None at all." Minisio felt her blood turn cold. "Take us down. I need to see it with my own eyes." The Pathfinder descended through the atmosphere. What they saw below made the entire crew fall silent. The cities were gone. Melted into pools of glass. The forests were burned to ash. The rivers ran black. Everything that had been green and alive was now gray and dead. "This was an attack," the tactical officer said. "Orbital bombardment. Multiple strikes. They used plasma weapons and biological agents." Minisio forced herself to keep looking at the screen. She saw what had been a school. Now it was just a crater in the ground. She saw what had been a hospital. Now it was melted metal and stone. She saw farms where families had lived and worked. Now there was nothing but scorched earth and silence. "Scan for survivors," she ordered, though she already knew what they would find. The sensors swept across the entire planet. Every city. Every town. Every settlement. The results came back the same. No life. Not even the smallest bacteria had survived the attack. "Captain, there is debris in orbit," her science officer reported. "Wreckage from the attacking ships. I can analyze the energy signatures." Minisio waited while the computer processed the data. When the results appeared on the screen, she felt rage burning in her chest. "They are Vakrith ships," the science officer said. "The debris is definitely from the Vakrith Dominion." Everyone on the bridge knew what this meant. The Vakrith were a powerful alien empire. They were aggressive and cruel. They believed they were superior to all other species in the galaxy. They had been expanding their territory for decades, destroying anyone who stood in their way. But they had never attacked humanity before. Until now. "Collect every piece of evidence," Minisio ordered. "Every scan. Every image. Every fragment of debris. Then send a priority transmission to Earth." "What should the message say?" her communications officer asked. Minisio stared at the dead world below. 47,000 people had lived there. People with dreams and families and futures. All of them were gone now. Erased as if they had never existed at all. "Tell them New Haven is destroyed. Tell them the Vakrith did this. And tell them we have proof." The message traveled through space for 3 days. When it reached Earth, everything changed. Admiral J1 Rivera watched the footage from New Haven. He watched it over and over. Each time he saw more details. A children's playground turned to ash. A market where people had shopped for food, now a field of glass. Homes where families had lived, now nothing but shadows burned into the ground. President Hygiene Volkov stood beside him in the command center. Her face showed no emotion, but her eyes were hard as steel. "Contact the Vakrith government," she said quietly. "We demand they surrender those responsible. We demand they pay for what they have done." And if they refuse? Admiral J1 asked. President Volkov turned to face him. When she spoke, her voice was cold enough to freeze stars. Then they have taught us necessary lessons. The end. The message from Earth reached the Vakrith homeworld 2 days later. It was formal and direct. Earth demanded justice. They wanted the commanders who ordered the attack surrendered for trial. They wanted compensation for the families of the dead. They wanted acknowledgement that a terrible crime had been committed. The Vakrith High Command read the message and laughed. Ambassador Krothkor stood before the Galactic Council, a gathering of representatives from hundreds of worlds. His reptilian features twisted into what passed for a smile among his species. He spoke with complete confidence, his voice carrying across the chamber. The humans claim we attacked their colony, he said, spreading his clawed hands wide. But they built their settlement in Vakrith space. They ignored our territorial boundaries. We simply enforced our rights. If humanity cannot protect its people, perhaps they should stay closer to their small blue world. The other species in the council shifted uncomfortably. Some nodded in agreement. Others looked away. No one spoke in defense of Earth. The humans were new to the galactic community. They had no real power. No real influence. The Vakrith were strong and numerous. It was easier to look away. Back on Earth, Admiral J1 Rivera watched the broadcast. His jaw clenched as Krothkor laughed. As the alien made jokes about human weakness. As the entire council sat in silence and let him speak. President Hygiene Volkov stood beside him. She watched the broadcast without speaking. When it ended, she turned to the Admiral. Begin the mobilization, she said quietly. Everything we have. Everything we have been hiding. J1 nodded. He had been waiting for this order. He turned to his command staff and began issuing instructions. Within hours, ships that had been mothballed for decades began powering their engines. Weapons that had been locked away were brought back online. Projects that had been kept secret were activated. The Soul Defense Doctrine was a plan humanity had created generations ago. After the terrible wars that had nearly destroyed Earth, humanity had promised itself and the galaxy that it would pursue peace. But humanity was not foolish. They knew that peace only lasted as long as others respected it. So they had prepared. They had built weapons in secret. They had developed technologies that no other species knew about. And they had sworn to use them only if humanity itself was threatened. New Haven had been more than an attack on one colony. It had been a message. It had been the Vakrith telling humanity that human lives did not matter. That humans were weak. That they could be killed without consequence. Now Earth would send a message in return. Dr. Sungho Tanaka found Admiral J1 in his private office later that evening. The Admiral was staring at a photograph on his desk. It showed a young woman in a military uniform, smiling at the camera. Is that her? Sungho asked quietly. J1 nodded. My daughter. Dune. She was 23 years old. She was stationed on New Haven as part of the agricultural development team. His voice was steady but his eyes were hollow. She sent me a message 3 days before the attack. She said the spring flowers were blooming. She said it reminded her of home. Sungho sat down slowly. I am sorry, my friend. The Vakrith did not just kill our people, J1 continued. They killed our children. Our future. And then they laughed about it in front of the entire galaxy. He looked up at Sungho. What would you have me do? Accept their mockery? Let them go unpunished. I want justice too, Sungho said carefully. But I have seen the mobilization orders. I know what weapons are being prepared. What you are planning, it will change everything. J1 stood and walked to the window. Below, Earth turned slowly in the darkness of space. Billions of people living their lives, unaware of what was coming. The other species think we are weak because we choose peace, the Admiral said. They think we are soft because we avoid conflict. They do not understand that we choose peace because we know the alternative. Because we remember what we are capable of when we go to war. He turned back to Sungho. My daughter is dead. 47,000 people are dead. The Vakrith laughed. And the entire galaxy stayed silent. His voice hardened. I will not stay silent. Earth will not stay silent. What are you going to do? Sungho asked, though part of him already knew the answer. We are going to teach the galaxy a lesson, J1 replied. We are going to show them what happens when you attack humanity. When you kill our people. When you laugh at our dead. He activated a display on his desk. The Vakrith home system appeared in holographic form. In 48 hours, the Terran Defense Fleet will arrive at Drakthor. And we will remind the galaxy why humans invented the word, war. Across Earth's solar system, the fleet assembled. 40 warships, each one carrying weapons the galaxy had never seen. At the center of the formation was the TCS Retribution, a massive dreadnought that had been built in secret over 20 years. Its black hull absorbed light like a void in space. The crews boarded their ships. Engineers made final checks. Weapons were loaded and armed. And in every heart the same thought burned. Remember New Haven. Remember the 47,000. Remember that humanity protects its own. The Vakrith High Command received reports of Earth's fleet movements. They read the intelligence with amusement. 40 ships? Against the might of the Vakrith Dominion? It was almost insulting. They prepared token defenses. They sent messages to their colonies telling them not to worry. The humans were posturing. They would arrive, make threats, and then leave. That was what weak species did. But they were wrong. Terribly, fatally wrong. The human fleet entered hyperspace. Their destination was locked. Their orders were clear. And their resolve was absolute. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson written in fire and death. The end. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Drakthor system. 40 warships appeared in perfect formation, their weapons already charging. At the center floated the TCS Retribution, black as the void itself, silent and deadly. On the bridge of the flagship, Admiral J1 Rivera stood with his hands clasped behind his back. Around him, his crew worked in focused silence. No one spoke unless necessary. Everyone knew what they had come to do. Vakrith Defense Fleet detected, the tactical officer reported. 120 warships. They are moving to intercept. Let them come, J1 said calmly. The Vakrith commanders were confident. They had superior numbers. Their ships were larger. They had been warriors for 1,000 years while humans were newcomers to space. This would be a simple battle. A quick victory. A lesson to teach these arrogant mammals. They were wrong about everything. The two fleets closed the distance. The Vakrith fired first, unleashing waves of plasma bolts and missiles. The human ships did not scatter. They did not retreat. They simply activated their defensive systems. Point defense lasers, faster and more accurate than anything the galaxy had seen, intercepted every missile. Energy shields absorbed the plasma fire without strain. The Vakrith weapons, which had conquered a dozen worlds, were suddenly useless. Then humanity fired back. The human plasma lances were different. They did not spray fire wildly like Vakrith weapons. Each shot was precise, calculated by advanced computers. Each beam found its target. Vakrith shields, designed to stop conventional weapons, shattered like glass under the focused assault. Within minutes, 10 Vakrith ships were destroyed. Within an hour, 50 were crippled or destroyed. The Vakrith fleet, so confident moments before, began to break apart in panic. They are retreating to the homeworld, the tactical officer reported. Follow them, J1 ordered. Do not let any escape. The human fleet advanced like a hammer falling. Ship after ship, the Vakrith vessels were torn apart. Some tried to surrender. Their transmissions were ignored. Some tried to flee. They were hunted down. In 3 hours, the entire Vakrith defense fleet was destroyed. The survivors of the Vakrith High Command retreated to their homeworld. They activated the planetary shields, massive energy barriers that had protected Drakthor for centuries. Behind those shields they felt safe. No weapon could penetrate them. The humans would have to negotiate now. But Admiral J1 Rivera had not come to negotiate. A transmission went out on all frequencies. Every ship in the system received it. Every colony world. Every monitoring station across the galaxy. The Admiral's face appeared on screens everywhere, cold and emotionless. This is Admiral J1 Rivera of the Terran Defense Fleet, he said. To the Vakrith High Command and all civilians on Drakthor, you have 6 hours to evacuate your planet. This is your only warning. After 6 hours we will act. There will be no further communication. The transmission ended. On Drakthor, the High Command stared at their screens in disbelief. Evacuate? The entire planet? It was impossible. Even if they wanted to, there were not enough ships to move billions of people in 6 hours. High Commander Vrathkar activated his own transmission. You are bluffing, human. Our shields cannot be broken. You cannot harm us. Leave now and we will consider showing mercy. No response came from the human fleet. Across the galaxy, other civilizations watched in growing horror. The Aelori Union sent desperate messages to Earth, begging them to stop. The Jeune Collective offered to mediate. Dozens of species pleaded for reason and restraint. All were ignored. 6 hours passed. The Vakrith did not evacuate. They could not believe the humans would actually do anything. It had to be a bluff. Humans were peaceful. They talked and negotiated. They did not commit genocide. They did not understand what they had awakened. When the deadline passed, the TCS Retribution moved into position, not facing the planet, not preparing to bombard the shields. Instead, the massive dreadnought turned toward the system's star. On the bridge, Dr. Sungho Tanaka made one final attempt. Admiral, please. Think about what you are doing. This is not justice. This is extinction. J1 turned to him. His face showed no emotion. New Haven received no warning. No mercy. No time to evacuate. 47,000 people died in minutes. The Vakrith laughed about it. He looked back at the view screen. Now they will understand what they have done. History will remember this, Sungho whispered. I know, J1 replied. But the galaxy will never laugh at human deaths again. He turned to his weapons officer. Fire. The Retribution launched a single projectile. It was small, barely visible on sensors. But it was moving at 90% of the speed of light. It crossed the distance to the star in seconds. The projectile penetrated the star's surface and detonated deep in the core. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then Vakrith scientists on Drakthor detected something impossible. The star's fusion reactions were becoming unstable. Catastrophically unstable. Panic erupted across the planet. Scientists ran calculations and found only horror. The star was collapsing. It would go supernova in less than 14 hours. Nothing could stop it. Nothing could save them. Ambassador Krothkor, who had laughed at humanity before the Galactic Council, sent a desperate transmission to the human fleet. His voice was broken, terrified. Please, he begged. Mercy. We were wrong. Please stop this. Our families. Our children. Please. Admiral J1 Rivera's response was broadcast across every frequency in the galaxy. The colonists of New Haven begged for mercy too, he said quietly. Did you grant it? The transmission ended. The human fleet maintained position around the system, preventing any ships from leaving. They would ensure that justice was complete. The Vakrith star collapsed inward. Then it exploded outward in a brilliant supernova. The light was so bright it could be seen from neighboring systems. Drakthor and 5 other inhabited worlds were vaporized instantly. 2.3 billion Vakrith died in seconds. The Vakrith Dominion, which had conquered worlds and terrorized species for 1,000 years, ceased to exist. The human fleet turned toward home. Behind them, the expanding cloud of stellar debris glowed like a funeral pyre visible across half the galaxy. In the silence that followed, every civilization understood a simple truth. Humanity had changed the rules. And nothing would ever be the same again. The end. The projectile entered the Vakrith star at nearly the speed of light. It was smaller than a person but carried technology that humanity had sworn never to use again. Deep inside the star's core, where temperatures reached millions of degrees, the device activated. The stellar destabilizer worked by disrupting the delicate balance that kept stars stable. It interfered with the fusion reactions, creating a cascade effect that could not be stopped. The star began to collapse inward, its core compressing under unimaginable pressure. Within minutes, Vakrith scientists on Drakthor detected the anomaly. At first, they thought their instruments were malfunctioning. The readings were impossible. Stars did not behave this way. But as more data came in, the horrible truth became clear. Their star was dying. And it was dying fast. Senior scientist Kralven burst into the high command chamber, his scales pale with terror. The star is collapsing. It will go supernova in 14 hours. Maybe less. High Commander Vrathkar stared at him. That is impossible. Stars do not just explode. The humans did something, Kralven said, his voice shaking. They launched something into the star. They destabilized it somehow. I do not know how, but the math is clear. We have 14 hours before the star explodes. The chamber fell silent. Then chaos erupted. Evacuate the planet, someone shouted. Where? There are billions of us. The colonies? Send ships to the colonies. But it was too late. The human fleet surrounded the system, blocking all escape routes. Any Vakrith ship that tried to leave was destroyed immediately. The humans were not allowing anyone to escape. They were ensuring that justice was complete. Across Drakthor, panic spread like wildfire. Citizens who had felt safe behind their planetary shields now realized those shields meant nothing. The threat was not coming from outside. It was coming from above. From their own star. Families ran to spaceports, desperate to find any ship that could take them away. But there were too many people and too few ships. Fights broke out. Ships crashed trying to launch in the chaos. The orderly civilization that had existed for centuries crumbled in hours. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, every major civilization watched in stunned horror. The Alori Union, peaceful and diplomatic for 10,000 years, sent an emergency transmission to Earth. "What you are doing is genocide," the Alori ambassador said, her voice trembling. "You are destroying an entire species. This is not justice. This is extinction." President Hygiene Volkov responded personally. Her face appeared on screens across diplomatic channels, calm and cold. "The Vakrith destroyed New Haven completely," she said. "They poisoned the atmosphere. They killed every living thing on that world. They erased 47,000 human lives. And when we demanded justice, they laughed." She leaned forward slightly. "Now they understand that actions have consequences." The Jeune Collective tried next. They were traders and negotiators skilled at finding solutions. "We can broker a peace. We can find a way to stop this. Name your price." Admiral J1 Rivera answered this time. "There is no price. There is no negotiation. The Vakrith made their choice when they attacked New Haven. We are simply teaching the galaxy a lesson that apparently needed to be taught." On Drakthor, Ambassador Krothkor recorded one final message. The same Vakrith who had stood before the Galactic Council and mocked humanity now knelt before a camera, tears streaming down his reptilian face. "Please," he begged. "I was wrong. We were all wrong. We thought you were weak. We did not understand. Please stop this. Our children have done nothing wrong. They are innocent. Please show mercy." The message reached the human fleet. Admiral J1 watched it on the bridge of the Retribution. His officers waited for his response. For a moment, something flickered in the Admiral's eyes. Doubt perhaps. Or pain. Then he remembered his daughter. Dune, who had loved the spring flowers on New Haven. Who had done nothing wrong. Who had been innocent. "Send a response," he ordered quietly. His message was broadcast across all frequencies. Every species in the galaxy heard it. "The children of New Haven were innocent too," he said. "They begged for mercy. They cried for their parents. Did you listen? Did you stop?" He paused. "You taught us that mercy is weakness. That peace is foolishness. That the strong do as they will and the weak suffer. Today you learn what happens when the weak become strong." The transmission ended. 10 hours remained. The Vakrith star continued its collapse. Scientists across the galaxy watched their instruments in fascination and horror. Some had thought stellar destabilization was theoretical, impossible to achieve. Now they knew humanity had done the impossible. 5 hours remained. On Drakthor, the panic had turned to despair. People gathered with their families. Some prayed to their gods. Others simply held their loved ones and waited for the end. 1 hour remained. The star's surface began to show visible distortions. Massive flares erupted into space. The light changed color, shifting toward blue as temperatures increased beyond normal levels. Then the star collapsed completely. For one brief moment, the core compressed to impossible density. The fusion reaction stopped entirely. Darkness fell across the system. Then came the explosion. The supernova erupted with the force of 1 billion nuclear weapons. The blast wave expanded outward at a significant fraction of light speed. Drakthor, protected by its mighty shields, was vaporized in microseconds. The shields might as well have been paper. 5 other inhabited worlds in the system met the same fate. Moons, space stations, orbital facilities, all turned to plasma and dust. 2.3 billion Vakrith died instantly. They did not have time to feel pain. One moment they existed. The next, they were scattered atoms in an expanding cloud of stellar debris. The human fleet, positioned at a safe distance, watched through filtered screens as the star system died. No one spoke. No one celebrated. They had come to deliver justice, and justice had been delivered. But the weight of what they had done hung heavy in the air. Dr. Sungho Tanaka stood beside Admiral J1, watching the expanding fireball that had been the Vakrith homeworld. "We have become death," Sungho whispered. "Destroyer of worlds." J1 nodded slowly. "Yes. And the galaxy will remember." The end. The news of Drakthor's destruction spread across the galaxy in hours. Every civilization received the same images. A star system that had existed for billions of years, gone in moments. An entire species reduced to scattered atoms. And at the center of it all, humanity. The species everyone had thought was weak and peaceful. The surviving Vakrith colonies, scattered across 3 distant systems, surrendered immediately. They sent messages to Earth begging for mercy. They offered everything they had. Their technology, their resources, their complete submission. They just wanted to survive. President Hygiene Volkov accepted their surrender with cold efficiency. Earth established military protectorates over all former Vakrith territory. Human ships patrolled their systems. Human governors oversaw their worlds. The Vakrith, who had once been conquerors, were now subjects. No other species objected. No one spoke in defense of the Vakrith. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity. The Alori Union called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered to discuss what had happened. The chamber that had once echoed with casual conversation was now silent and tense. The Alori ambassador stood to speak. Her species had been peacekeepers for 10,000 years. They had mediated countless conflicts. But she had never seen anything like this. Humanity has committed an act of unprecedented destruction, she said carefully. They have shown us weapons we did not know existed. They have demonstrated a willingness to destroy entire star systems. We must decide how to respond. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species argued that humanity should be sanctioned, isolated, contained. Others argued that any action against Earth would be suicide. The humans had destroyed a star. What could anyone do against such power? In the end, the council made no decision. They could not agree on what to do. So they did nothing. And in doing nothing, they gave humanity exactly what it wanted. Respect through fear. Trade routes that had been closed to human ships suddenly opened. Species that had ignored Earth's diplomatic messages now responded immediately. Non-aggression pacts were signed quickly with no debate or negotiation. Everyone wanted to ensure they would never be the next target. Back on Earth, the government faced its own reckoning. President Volkov stood before the United Earth Assembly to give her report. The chamber was packed. Every representative was present. Every screen across Earth showed her face. We sent our people to New Haven to build a better future, she began. They went in peace. They harmed no one. They asked for nothing except to live their lives. Her voice hardened. The Vakrith murdered them all. Every man, woman, and child. And they laughed about it. She paused, letting her words sink in. I authorized the destruction of the Drakthor system. I take full responsibility for that decision. Some will say we went too far. Some will say we became monsters. She looked directly into the camera. But I will say this. No human colony has been attacked since. Not one. The galaxy now understands that human lives have value. That we will protect our own. That there are consequences for harming us. The assembly sat in silence. Then, slowly, some representatives began to applaud. Others joined. Not everyone agreed with what had been done. But everyone understood why it had been done. Admiral J1 Rivera did not attend the assembly session. Instead, he stood alone at the New Haven Memorial in Geneva. The monument listed all 47,000 names of those who had died. His daughter's name was there, carved in stone among thousands of others. Dr. Sungho Tanaka found him there as evening fell. You are a hero to some, Sungho said quietly. A monster to others. I know, J1 replied, not taking his eyes from the memorial. History will judge which one I truly was. Do you regret it? J1 was silent for a long moment. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that the Vakrith gave us no choice. I regret every single life lost on both sides. He finally turned to face his friend. But I do not regret protecting humanity. I do not regret ensuring that no other colony will suffer New Haven's fate. Sungho nodded slowly. The galaxy fears us now. Yes. But fear is better than contempt. Fear keeps our people safe. 3 months after Drakthor's destruction, Earth received an unexpected message. It came from the Zhen Collective, the galaxy's most successful traders and information brokers. We wish to establish a formal alliance with humanity, the message read. We also wish to share intelligence about a potential threat. The Krell Hive has taken notice of your demonstration of power. They're interested. This is not good news. President Volkov read the message with growing concern. The Krell were a hive mind species from the far edge of known space. They were expansionist and aggressive. And they were numerous beyond counting. They see us as a threat, she said to her advisors. Or worse, as a challenge. What do we do? Someone asked. Volkov looked out at the stars beyond Earth. Somewhere out there, the Krell were watching, judging, planning. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy with fire and destruction. Now they would face the consequences of that announcement. We prepare, she said simply. We showed the galaxy we can destroy a star. Now we must be ready to prove we can do it again if necessary. Jiwoo Park, the communications officer who had first noticed New Haven's silence, now monitored a much larger network. Every human colony, every settlement, every outpost reported in regularly. She checked each transmission carefully. All of them came in on time. Every single one. No colony dared miss a check-in. And no alien species dared attack one. She looked at her screen at the list of colonies scrolling past. New Haven was gone, its entry marked with a memorial notation. But because of what had happened there, all the others remained safe. Jiwoo thought about the price that had been paid. 2.3 billion Vakrith dead. A star system destroyed. Humanity feared across the galaxy. Was it worth it? She thought of the 47,000 colonists who had died on New Haven. People who had only wanted to live in peace. She thought of what would have happened if Earth had done nothing. If they had shown weakness. How many more colonies would have been attacked? How many more humans would have died? She typed a note into her log. Simple words that captured a complex truth. The galaxy called us weak. New Haven taught us otherwise. Drakthor taught them. Outside her window, Earth turned peacefully in the darkness of space. Billions of people living their lives, protected by the terrible knowledge that their government would do anything to keep them safe. The age of human innocence was over. The galaxy had forced that change. And now every species in known space understood a simple truth. Humanity was no longer prey. They were no longer weak. They had become something else entirely. Something that could erase a star system from existence. Something that would protect its own at any cost. The galaxy had wanted to know what humans were capable of. Now they knew. And they would never forget. The end.